If you're a screenwriter or storyteller or creative writer who's feeling a little apprehension in this era of AI, wondering if you're about to be replaced by someone who can type a prompt into ChatGPT and have it spit out a story that's good enough to not really need your services, you're going to want to watch this video, because in this extended deep dive, I'm going to show you how you can make yourself indispensable and carve out a profitable creative career for yourself in the age of AI. Now, because of the urgency of this moment, I wanted to put this together a little bit quickly, so forgive my stumbles and fumbles, but there's basically 5 sections that we're going to cover in this video. First, we're going to talk about the paradigm shift. Right now, AI is introducing a massive paradigm shift, not just to our industry, but to the entire world. And because the entire world is getting disrupted by AI, it is going to affect not just how we create stories and how we create movies and entertainment, but how people consume that and what that means for the value of the stories that we create in the marketplace. And then in part 2, we're going to look at the new opportunity this paradigm shift opens up for us. See, most people are fixated on all the negatives associated with AI, what it might be taking away, or the fears or anxieties around it, and they're completely ignoring and missing the infinite opportunity it does open up for us. When we look at the future with some core fundamental principles, it reveals to us an extraordinary future that you need to be able to take advantage of. And then in part 3, I'm going to show you what you can do right now to prepare yourself as a creative individual for this moment. I'm literally going to show you how you can rewire your brain to take maximum advantage of it. And I know that's going to sound a little bit kind of woo-woo, but the brain operates on a principle called neuroplasticity. And the things that you do rewire your brain to be able to do those things more effectively. So if the things you're doing are set to make you really good at something that is now obsolete, it's time to rewire your brain so that you can do the things that make you a distinct advantage in the new era. And then in part 4, we're going to tie it all together to make you indispensable. See, once you understand the paradigm shift and the new opportunities that it opens up and how to position yourself for those new opportunities, by making yourself indispensable, you become someone that producers will want to work with, that audiences will want to watch, and you will have the ability to create whatever opportunities for yourself you see and tap into. But if all you do is listen passively to this video, absorbing information and data, this is all for naught. And that's why part 5 is about action. I'm going to give you some simple strategies and tactics for how to make sure that you actually implement what we're building over the course of this session. Now, full transparency, these 5 sections reflect the 5 days of the Indispensable Screenwriter 5-day challenge, link in the description below. But there is no possible way that I could cover all of the material that I cover in that challenge in a video like this. So what my attempt here is I'm going to try to distill into its essence the key concepts and ideas of each of those 5 sections, so that at the end of this, you have your first transformation. You can see clearly where we're going, why we're going there, and how to take full advantage of it. So to really help you get the most out of this video, let me give you a little bit of context so you understand where I'm coming from with all of this. I fundamentally believe that every single human being on this planet has intrinsic value, that you are looking at this world through a unique window that literally no one else has ever or will ever have. You have an imagination that is unique to you. You have DNA that's unique to you. You move through the world in a different set of space-time coordinates. You have different background, educational, financial, religious, political. You have different set of siblings and different relationships with them. You have a different gender, age, ethnicity, skin color, languages spoken, different traumas and triumphs in your life. And all of it gives you a filter through which you see the world. If you and I were standing side by side, we would see the same event and interpret it in completely different ways. And that gives you insights. That gives you an imagination that no one else will ever have, which means that you have stories inside you that literally no one else could ever tell. AI, on the other hand, is trained on all of human knowledge and existence. So when it generates a story, it's doing so through data and analysis. It's literally taking all of the stories that it has been trained on and finding the patterns of what makes that story work and spitting something out that closely resembles what you've asked for. It's not coming at storytelling through your lived experience, and this alone gives you value in the marketplace. The challenge is in the nature of value and how we trade it with one another. In the previous video I made, I talked about the 4 value types of your story. There's the market value, the nostalgia value, the historical value, and the unforeseen value. But in the market value, what people are willing to pay for your stories right here and right now, the problem that we have is that creative people create from the inside out, whereas market value is traded from the outside in. You have a story or an idea, or you want to make a song or a piece of art. You want to create that thing, but just because you do and put it out into the market doesn't mean that there's someone on the other end that wants to give you money for that thing. People pay for something they need, some experience they want to have, or some solution to a problem they might have. And so if we create something that nobody else wants to pay for, this is where we run into our problem. And now into that mix, into that context, we inject this new tool that democratizes our ability to learn anything we want to learn, research anything we want to research, and create anything we want to create. And anyone can type a prompt into AI and have it spit out a story. And that fundamentally changes the value exchange, not only of what is being created, but what is available for consumption. And this is what creates the paradigm shift that we are currently experiencing. So let's talk about what a paradigm shift actually is. A paradigm shift is a fundamental change in the underlying structure of how something is done or achieved or accomplished. There has been a lot of pushback in the film industry about AI and about AI tools and about how it's going to change and disrupt everything. But I think this is a huge mistake, because this fundamentally misunderstands that the paradigm shift we're going through is not just localized to our industry. It's actually a global paradigm shift, which is not only going to affect how movies are made and who makes them, but how movies and entertainment are consumed and what people will want from the stories that we create. The misunderstanding is that AI does not mark a shift from human to machine. AI marks a shift from scarcity to abundance. If we imagine 10 years ago and the number of screenplays that were written was maybe globally somewhere in the 50,000 range. Now, with the introduction of AI, we move to an era where 5 million screenplays can be created in the same amount of time. Now, they might not be as good, they might not have the human perspective and all that kind of stuff, but the sheer volume of that change means that how we deal with, how we review and analyze the screenplays that come in as a production company simply has to change. But now on top of this, consider the added impact from AI-generated video tools or AI-assisted production tools. Suddenly, the ability to make whole films, cinematic experience, cinematic entertainment gets put into the hands of pretty much anyone, pretty much anywhere. We're entering the era of self-published cinema, and that is a complete paradigm shift for the traditional video and production and studio structure. The old production companies, the old studios are now competing with everyone. I cannot overstate a key point here, and that is that creative people are looking at AI and this paradigm shift through the creative lens. We're thinking about how it affects creativity and the value of what we create in the marketplace. But its real transformative underlying shift, its power, comes from the fact that it is disrupting the economies underlying the traditional film and entertainment structure. And the Truth is, that is going to lead to an absolute explosion of content worldwide. Now, obviously, our first reaction is horror. How are we going to navigate this sea of noise? But the reality is that infinite content also leads to audience overwhelm. And so what becomes your differentiator moving forward is your unique voice and what you uniquely create. So the key becomes, how do we create something of value for the new marketplace in which this is the reality? The truth is, most writers are feeling a major sense of overwhelm in this moment, and it's leading to paralysis. They're not writing, they're not finding a way to navigate this chaos. If we think about the disruption that is happening, if we think about the democratization of these tools, if we think about the absolutely exploding potential for anyone to be able to harness the power of these tools, it removes the need for the gatekeepers of the industry. No longer do we have to write thousands of scripts to compete for the eyeballs of just a couple of tastemakers or studio heads. Anyone, anywhere can take what they've created and go out and turn it into something of potential value to the marketplace. And the irony of it all is that being a creative person and being fortunate enough to be alive to witness this paradigm shift gives you a perspective and insights and value and a point of view and a lived experience that you can capture that will be immensely valuable both in the marketplace now, if we position it correctly, and for all of the future because of the nature of this transformational moment. So the first step in mapping out your path to a profitable creative career in the age of AI is to reframe this paradigm shift as one that is not taking something away from you, but rather is opening up a world of possibility for you. And that's why I want to turn your attention in the next section of this video to the new opportunity this paradigm shift opens up. Because once you see it, I believe it's going to explode your creativity. Look, we all understand that movies and stories and art have lots of different kinds of value. There's aesthetic value, there's cultural value, but what we're talking about here specifically is market value, what someone would pay you for the product itself. When we look at movies or stories through that lens, what is actually being traded money for is the experience of the story itself. When they go to the Cineplex, the audience is considering whether spending 2 hours watching this movie, having this experience, is worth the $20 they're being asked to spend. When they're considering whether to renew their Netflix subscription each month, they're considering whether that money is worth the entertainment value they get out of that subscription. When a producer considers the value of your screenplay as they're thinking about whether or not they want to go ahead and get the investment and put the package together and produce and distribute that thing, they're trying to imagine if the audience is going to value the end product enough to want to pay for that. So the market value of your screenplay has traditionally been based on how valuable a producer or a competing group of producers thinks your story will be in its final form as a movie. The problem is, once the ability to create a story is democratized, when pretty much anyone can do it more or less at the push of a button, the relative value of creating a story drops. But what increases or stays the same is the value of the experience to the consumer. Now, I've been primarily focused on the independent film world for a very long time, in part because in the independent film world, we just don't need permission to make movies. As long as someone sees the value of it to the marketplace, we can go out and make whatever we want. And this is where you need to understand a concept I call the trifecta. Over the years, we have seen a continuous dropping in the cost of the technology required to make films, with a simultaneous increase in the quality of those production tools. AI takes that whole thing and just amplifies it. Now, the trifecta is the three major components you need to be able to make a film. We basically need a writer, someone who creates the story, a producer, someone who turns that story into a film, and an investor, someone who can fund the whole operation. If we have that trifecta, we can literally make anything anywhere today. Now, to be clear, I'm not trying to offend actors or directors or any of the other important people that are involved in film production. What I'm trying to get at here is that if you have a story that you have created, and your neighbor is a filmmaker who can turn that story into a film, and the neighbor past that has, let's say, $30,000 to invest in the film, you can make a cinema quality piece of entertainment today that is ready for the marketplace. And it doesn't literally have to be 3 people. You could do all of the roles yourself, or you could hire 2 or 3 people in each of the roles. So the point is, conceptually, we need this trifecta in order to be able to make a project. Now, the reason this concept is so strategically valuable in the age of AI, after the paradigm shift, is because as these tools get democratized, as they get put into the hands of literally anyone, literally anywhere, you could create a story very quickly, your neighbor could turn it into a film very quickly, and your investor doesn't need to invest all that much money. Or maybe your investor has some other value that they're looking to exchange with the marketplace. See, over the years, I have taught and interacted with literally tens of thousands of writers. And one of the common things I've noticed is that most writers tend not to understand the value that they're offering to the marketplace, either in the screenplay that they're writing or in their own skills as a screenwriter and storyteller. And as I dug into it, I came to realize that there are basically 3 tracks of value that we can offer to the marketplace in exchange for money. And the first one, the one that we do as storytellers and filmmakers, is what I call the story track, where you're basically trading an experience for money. So someone is paying for that 2-hour experience. If you go to a theme park, you're paying for the experience of the park. If you go to a day spa, you're paying for that experience. But the second track of value is what I call the skills track. And this is where we're trading our skills for money. Someone is paying you for your time so that you can deliver a skill that they need to solve some problem of theirs of some kind. This is where your day job lives. If you are a screenwriter and someone hires you on assignment, they're paying you for the skill set that you have. One of the underdeveloped skills screenwriters tend to think about. And then the third track is what I call the solutions track, where we basically create a product or service that solves some problem that someone somewhere is willing to pay for. Now, this is the core of pretty much how all business works. All business is someone saying, I have a problem, someone else saying, I have a solution, someone paying for that solution and getting whatever that product or service was, and hopefully solving the problem. Now, as creative writers and filmmakers and storytellers, we are naturally drawn to the story track. And so we often can get fixated on that being the only possible way to generate revenue. Or we develop our skills enough that someone will hire us at high dollar amounts to solve their problems for them by performing the skill that they've hired us to perform. But here's the hidden key that unlocks the infinite opportunity this era affords us. And that is that we can combine the tracks so that we can offer value to people who want it in a way that sustains the creative work that we're so passionate about doing. Now, I'll give you an example that you're probably going to resist initially, but I just want you to think conceptually about how this could work. Imagine that your investor in your trifecta had a business that offered some solutions track product or service. Now, because of that, they generate enough revenue to be able to pay for you to write stories and have them made so that you're further developing your skill set. It makes your career sustainable. Or imagine that your spouse or a family member or someone on your team has a skill that you can package up and offer to the marketplace, the proceeds from which then get funneled into the creation of your stories, the creation of your movies, and the marketing and distribution of them. Or if you really wanted to just lean into the story track, You can become a micro mogul where you create a consistent and ongoing output of film and entertainment that a certain specific audience that you define and you cultivate and you build is interested in watching on an ongoing basis. Now, the point here is not that any of these examples are ready-made just for you, pull off the shelf and go. The idea is to help get you thinking that thanks to this extraordinary new tool, AI, we're able to do things we could never do before. And if we divide the labor into those trifecta roles, we can give the person who's good at business the job of investor. We can give the person who's good at storytelling or story creation those unique lived experiences that would create valuable insights and vicarious experiences for audience members. The writer role, we could give the person who wants to turn it into a film, whether digitally or whether in the real world with the old traditional methods. By dividing up our strategy into those roles, we can harness the power of this moment and really take advantage of any opportunity we imagine. We can create multiple opportunities. Literally, the person who lives next door to you, maybe the person down the street you've never even met before, can, in this day and age, become a part of this creative project or that creative project, this strategic objective, that strategic objective. It's just a matter of carving out the path to get where you want to go. And if your goal is to write for Hollywood or the big studios, this is the new way in, because you can create for yourself an array of projects that demonstrate your unique voice and vision, the stories that only you can tell. Which brings us to section 3, which is what you can do and how you can position yourself to be valuable to the trifecta in this new era. Look, the stark reality is that now that AI is ubiquitous and pretty much anyone, pretty much anywhere can type a few things into a prompt and spit out a story or spit out a movie or spit out a new business idea and get AI agents to run off and go build that business for them, what becomes the differentiator for you in that creative marketplace? If we think of that trifecta, the producer, the investor, why do they need you as the writer when they could just type into a ChatGPT and have it do that creative work for them? As I mentioned earlier in this video, I believe every human being has intrinsic value because of your unique window on the world. You have ideas and insights and imagination no one else will ever have. The challenge is you need now to be able to capture and harness those ideas and those stories in a way that is as good as or better than what AI can generate as quickly as AI generates it. Now, that's not exactly true, because the value of a story born of lived experience is, I believe, going to be more viscerally tangible and valuable than a story born of data and analysis and pattern recognition. But if the time it takes you to create your story is sufficiently long enough that there's more benefit in using the AI, you're going to get squeezed out every time, which is why I have always believed that the key to a professional screenwriting career is the ability to create mastery level pro quality material at speed. And the one thing I know for certain after going down this path for over 15 years is that we can literally rewire our brains to create better quality more quickly. See, I hinted at it early on, but the brain has a quality known as neuroplasticity, where it rewires based upon the activities that we do, and particularly the activities we repeatedly do. So if you're rewiring your brain for a skill set that is now obsolete, we need to rewire your brain for the skill set that will be valuable in the future. Now, this is actually my area of expertise because over the past 25 years, I have reverse engineered the complete creative process to guide writers from that very first spark of an idea all the way through the writing, rewriting, polishing, testing, aligning, and connecting their projects with their ideal producer. This process that I built is specifically designed to rewire your brain for intuitive creativity. Now, I want to be very clear here. I'm not trying to convince you to join me in my system. What I need you to understand is that what we have to do is rewire your brain to make creativity effortless, intuitive, automatic, so that when an idea sparks into your head, that idea can be turned into a story really quickly so that you can compete with the speed of AI. So let me walk you through the process so that you know the path you have to take, whether you join me on that journey or not. Basically, writing a story, taking an idea, turning it into a compelling story is a 4-part process. In part 1, we have an idea or lots of ideas or no ideas, but we have to find our ideas. We have to mine our brain for the ideas that we have. And then we have to focus those ideas into a story plan. We have to give shape, give narrative form to the stray ideas that are in our imagination. Next, we have to take that story plan and apply it to the page. We have to write a first draft. And it is my contention that if we learn how to write that first draft as intuitively as possible, the ideas that spring forth from your imagination come from your creative subconscious. They come from your intuition. You tap into ideas that are more powerful, more unique, more original than anything AI can generate. Now, third, once you have a first draft, you need to strengthen that draft until it's solid. You basically need to rewrite maybe once, maybe multiple drafts until you end up with the story you want to tell. Now, all 3 of these phases of the writing process are you taking your ideas and putting them onto the page. What we really need to do, though, for an effective reader experience, for something someone else would want to experience, is to think about it then from the perspective of that viewer or of that reader. So the next stage, the 4th stage, is we want to tweak the words on the page to ensure that we have a page turner reader experience. We want to make sure that the words on the page put the ideas that were in your head into the reader's head. Now, these 4 phases are the core of the writing process. Now, I created a simple acronym to remind you of your objective, which is FAST, focus, apply, strengthen, tweak, for fast screenplay, so that we know what our objective is. Nobody will ever care how fast you wrote your screenplay. They only care how fast it reads, how engaging it is, how much it pulls them into that story. But by focusing on a process-first approach to creative writing, we remove ourselves from this shoehorning of ideas into formulaic structure. We open ourselves up to new ways of storytelling and new ideas and insights and nuances that simply haven't been done before. By focusing on the process, the actions you take from the spark of an idea to the first draft, to the rewritten draft, to the polished page turner screenplay, what we're doing is giving yourself a repeatable journey that as you do it with each subsequent project, you're rewiring your brain to go through that process increasingly intuitively. Look, true, genuine human creativity is not a mystery. It's a skill that you can develop, that you need to develop in order to capture and harness your intrinsic value. And the more you build that skill set, the more valuable you become to any trifecta you want to become a part of. In fact, if you do it strategically and set yourself up correctly, you can become indispensable. Let me ask you a question that might hurt a little. What's the difference between a mid-level staff writer on a low-rated network TV show and Shonda Rhimes? The difference, obviously, is that the mid-level staff writer is replaceable. Now, I mean absolutely no disrespect to mid-level TV staff writers everywhere, but the reality of AI is that those good enough jobs are very soon going to be replaced by AI and AI tools that can do that work at a cheaper cost and more quickly. One of the reasons I generally don't advise writers lean on AI for assistance in brainstorming or in analyzing their stories or helping them come up with better narratives is because they, by definition, will be blunting the part of their brain that makes them a unique intrinsic value. When all the push-button writers of the world start using AI to help them with their stories and to generate content, it's necessarily going to strip out what is unique about that writer and filter it through this increasing lens of AI storytelling. What a writer needs to do is make themselves indispensable to that trifecta, indispensable to the audience that's enjoying the stories that you're creating. If you want to be indispensable, by definition, you are going to need to develop something that is unique that we can't get anywhere else. All right, so how do we become indispensable? My best advice for any new writer out there is write 9 screenplays before you start your passion project. And now I can already hear the resistance and pushback through the video camera. But if you do this effectively, if you set this up correctly, it actually doesn't take that long to write these 9 screenplays, because all you need to do is break it down into 3 groups of 3 screenplays. The first 3 screenplays are what I call your process screenplays, where you learn the process of turning an idea into a complete and compelling story. Now, I described the process in section 3 when I walk you through that journey. Your first 3 times going through that journey are those first 3 screenplays. Once we understand how to move through this process intuitively, in a fraction of the time, then our objective is to do it as instinctively as possible, literally to blast it out as quickly as we can. Here's the magic of it. Once you've trained yourself, once you've rewired your brain to be able to turn an idea into a compelling screenplay in a matter of weeks, then we can focus that skill set on the next 3 screenplays, which are entirely focused on technique. The first of the second group of screenplays, your 4th screenplay, I believe, should focus on structure and how to tell story structure effectively. Your second of 3, which is your 5th screenplay, should focus on character and theme and the message of the story that you're trying to get across through the characters that embody your story. And then the third of those second 3 screenplays, those technique screenplays, is focused on the detail of your story world. Now, if you start with process and develop the ability to create stories quickly, then we can focus that energy on developing the specific skill sets that make you valuable as a storyteller. The sheer act of writing 6 distinct screenplays teaches you how the craft works. You get a better intuitive sense of how to tell a great story, how to build great characters, how to create great scenes, and how to make a story have an impact upon a reader. And that's when you focus on the last 3 screenplays, which are specifically aimed at developing your skill of alignment. The first of those final 3 screenplays, screenplay number 7, is about writing something that is specifically aligned to a producer or production partner. Now, alignment isn't a concept we've gone very far into in this video, but the basic idea is not just to create something that would appease someone else or to satisfy their wants or needs, but rather to create something where you are creatively aligned with someone else's business and professional needs. See, once you can create stories intuitively and then you develop the craft of being able to tell more effective stories intuitively, then when we focus on alignment, you can actually create something that is in sync with the needs of your trifecta partners. So the 8th screenplay, the second in that final 3 that's focused on alignment, becomes about aligning to your own strategic objectives, creating a screenplay that will literally help you get where you're trying to go. And then the last of the 9 screenplays is specifically focused on trying to create something intuitively, effectively, that is in sync and aligned with your intended legacy. See, the cheat code to becoming an extraordinary creative writer, someone who has your own unique voice and vision and something to say, someone who becomes ultimately indispensable, is you just have to write a lot and get really good and intuitive at the craft of writing. And we want to avoid letting AI take away what makes you unique and special. In fact, the more you write and the more intuitive that writing becomes, the better and more indispensable a writer you'll become. If your objective is to create stories that people will value and will want to watch, those stories by definition have to be a cut above everything else that's available and out there. So the key to success actually is what we're going to cover in section 5, which is taking action. Look, as I lay out this exact path to a profitable screenwriting career in the age of AI, I understand that what I'm presenting here may seem like a lot of work. So the reality is that screenwriting should be fun. Creative writing should feel like play. The key to success is always taking action. And in fact, what it boils down to is consistent, ongoing, daily action. So what you need to do is simply write every single day. Well, what I have found is that the secret to success is not to see this big, giant thing that you're trying to achieve, but rather to take this thing and break it down into chunks. One of the reasons Fast Screenplay has those 7 phases and why those phases are further broken down into individual movements and why those movements are further broken down into detailed daily action steps that you simply focus on one new step each day and move forward through that process is because it takes the entire big, overwhelming journey and makes it achievable. It makes it just one small action that you take every single day. And again, I talk about Fast Screenplay because that's how I came to understand these ideas. You don't have to join me inside that system to get the benefit of what I'm talking about here. All you need to do is take this vision, take this journey, take what you're trying to achieve and break it down into manageable bite-sized chunks. And here's where AI can help you. If you ask AI not to do the writing or creativity for you, but instead to prompt you to do the work you need to do to become more creative and intuitive in your own writing, then it's going to spit out a lot of suggestions, a lot of advice, probably some structured framework that you can use to develop your skills in alignment with what we've talked about in this video. And the truth of the matter is, if you've come all the way through this video and you're actually hearing my voice right now, that means that you're interested in this stuff. That means that you want to follow through and build a creative career for yourself. Most people are not going to watch this far. Most people are not going to hear these words. And so if you're hearing these words, that means that you are here at a moment of enormous opportunity, and absorbing this information and not acting on it is going to lead to the biggest regret of your life. So as a recap and an overview and a way to deliver on the promise of the title of this video, let's walk through 7 steps to building your path to a profitable screenwriting career in the age of AI. Step number 1 is to shift your focus. Recognize that the paradigm shift leads us away from scarcity and toward abundance. There is opportunity absolutely everywhere. Now, step number 2 is to start identifying and forming your trifecta. A writer, a producer, an investor is all it takes in the new era. Now, you can do all of these things yourself, but you're necessarily dividing your attention and not becoming indispensable in each of those categories. If we start to think outside the box of the traditional industry structure, we start to see that investors can come from anywhere, that producers and filmmakers may be people who are just now developing a whole new skill set thanks to AI. We can see that you can become whichever one or all of these that you want to be. And then step number 3 is to look for the most advantageous value track mix. Are there ways for you or your trifecta to mix story track value with skills track or solutions track values? Consider what people need or what people want that they're willing to pay you for. And that's not just the audience or the end consumer, but the people within your trifecta as well. And then step 4 is to focus on rewiring your brain for intuitive creativity. Now, you can do that through fast screenplay, or you can do it through whatever process or structure you would like to pursue. But always remember that each time you go through the process, your objective is to try to make it increasingly intuitive so that the place you create from is your most true inner instinct. And then step 5 is to commit to 9 screenplays. If all you're ever going to do is try to spit out one screenplay or lean into AI to do the work for you, you're never going to develop that indispensable character. We want 3 projects to really make that process intuitive, 3 projects to expand your technique, and then 3 projects to master that skill of alignment. This progression makes mastery inevitable, and mastery is what creates demand. And then step 6 is to take consistent, ongoing daily action. Take this entire big objective, break it down into individual daily bite-sized chunks, and then just chip away at it each day as you move forward and develop this skill set. Start small with achievable objectives and 15-minute targets, and then grow and build as you develop your skills and as you develop your confidence. And then step 7 is the secret to all success. Iterate. When you try something and you fail at it, or it doesn't quite meet your expectations, that's simply an indication that something isn't quite what you want or need it to be. It's so easy for us to interpret that as a failure, but it's not a failure at all. It's the learning process. If every time you don't hit your target or your objective, you learn from it and try to identify what missed the mark, and then focus on improving that, you cannot help but loop and iterate your way to inevitable results. This is the path. If you follow this, if you actually implement this, you will become indispensable in the new AI era. You will see opportunities that are simply not visible to other people in this space right now. Now, I know this has been a lot for a single deep dive YouTube video, and it's very easy to watch a video like this and just kind of let it wash over you and consume you. So if you like what we've covered here, I would invite you to join me in the Indispensable Screenwriter 5-Day Challenge. What we do is we basically do a deeper dive, 1 full hour session on each of these 5 core segments here with exercises at the end of them. So we actually build out a physical roadmap that's custom tailored to you and your unique situation over the span of a single week. Now, one of the reasons we do this and one of the benefits that you get out of it is because we're simply doing that deep dive into each section each night, then you actually have time to mull it over. You have time to absorb and process it and then filter it through the actual exercise so that we build a roadmap by the time you're done. One of the hardest things to bake into a YouTube video like this is accountability, is some mechanism to ensure that you really take action on this stuff, that you really follow through with it. I really can't emphasize enough that this is the most pivotal moment in humanity's history. We are watching a paradigm shift that is going to fundamentally change the nature of what it means to be human, what it means to be creative, what it means to work and to interact with one another. And you, if you're watching this in real time, are witnessing this moment, and the imagination that you have comes from this moment. The stories that you would imagine telling right now are born of this particular moment in time. And in the future, a couple of generations from now, we will look back at this very moment as transformational, and we will have nostalgic and historical value attached to the stories that we tell. And if you take advantage of all the things that we talked about in this session, if you join me in the Indispensable Screenwriter Challenge, we can actually make market value out of the stories that you tell in this moment as well, that will support you and sustain you and keep you going as we move forward into the new era. This is my hope anyway. This is my intention, and this is my objective. I've been teaching creative writers and screenwriters for the better part of 25 years as I record this video, and I have predicted this moment in a TED Talk I did about 10 years ago. I really believe we are on the cusp of something major and profound and important, and I'm doing my best to try to help you in the navigating of this moment in time. So if you've liked this, if you've enjoyed this, if you would like more, if you'd like to join me, click on the link in the description and sign up for the Indispensable Screenwriter 5-Day Challenge. If you would like to take anything further, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, because I'm going to be pouring a whole bunch of new content and value onto this channel. Hopefully there's another video that pops up here if it's ready. Other than that, thank you so much for joining me on this extended deep dive. I look forward to your comments, and I hope to see you in the next video.